We'll turn to Shemot, Exodus chapter 33, beginning with verse 12. Shemot 33:12. This is October the 15th, 2011, on our calendar here in the United States, and on the Hebrew calendar, the 17th day of Tishri, 5772. And I've entitled the message, What Distinguishes Us? The Torah portion for today starts with chapter 33, verse 12 of Shemot, and ends with chapter 34, verse 26. And we'll read the whole thing, and then I'll come back to where I want to deal with the passage. Moshe said to Adonai, "Look, you say to me, make these people move on. But you haven't let me know whom you will be sending with me. Nevertheless, you have said, I know you by name, and also you have found favor in my sight. Now please, if it is really the case that I have found favor in your sight, show me your ways, so that I will understand you and continue finding favor in your sight. Moreover, keep on seeing this nation as your people." He answered, "Set your mind at rest. My presence will go with you after all." Moshe replied, "If your presence doesn't go with us, don't make us go on from here. For how else is it to be known that I have found favor in your sight, I and your people, other than by your going with us? That is what distinguishes us, me and your people, from all the other peoples of the earth." Adonai said to Moshe, "I will also do what you have asked me to do, because you have found favor in my sight, and I know you by name." But Moshe said, "I beg you to show me your glory." He replied, "I will cause all my goodness to pass before you, and in your presence I will pronounce the name of Adonai. Moreover, I show favor to whomever I will, and I display mercy to whomever I will. But my face," he continued, "you cannot see, because a human being cannot look at me and remain alive. Here," he said, "is a place near me. Stand on the rock. When my glory passes by, I will put you inside a crevice in the rock and cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand, and you will see my back, but my face is not to be seen." Adonai said to Moshe, "Cut yourself 2 tablets of stone like the first ones, and I will inscribe on the tablets the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke. Be ready by morning. In the morning you are to ascend Mount Sinai and present yourself to be on the top of the mountain. No one is to come up with you, and no one is to be seen anywhere on the mountain. No one is to come up with you. Don't even let the flocks or herds feed in front of this mountain." I took my glasses off about the time I started doing that. Moshe cut 2 stone tablets like the first. Then he got up early in the morning, and with the 2 stone tablets in his hands ascended Mount Sinai as Adonai had ordered him to do. Adonai descended in the cloud, stood with him there, and pronounced the name of Adonai. Adonai passed before him and proclaimed, Yud He Vav He. Yud He Vav He is God, merciful and compassionate, slow to anger, rich in grace and truth, showing grace to the 1000th generation, forgiving offenses, crimes, and sins, yet not exonerating the guilty, but causing the negative effects of the parents' offenses to be experienced by their children and grandchildren, and even by the 3rd and 4th generations. At once Moshe bowed his head to the ground, prostrated himself, and said, "If I have now found favor in your view, Adonai, then please let Adonai go with us, even though they are a stiff-necked people, and pardon our offenses and our sin, and take us as your possession. He said, Here I am making a covenant in front of all your people. I will do wonders such as have not been created anywhere on earth or in any nation. All the people around you will see the work of Adonai. What I'm going to do through you will be awesome. Observe what I am ordering you to do today. Here I am driving out ahead of you the Amori, the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Hivi, and the Yebusi. Be careful not to make a covenant with the people living in the land where you're going, so that they won't become a snare within your borders. Rather, you are to demolish their altars, smash their standing stones, and cut down their sacred poles, because you're not to bow down to any other god, since Adonai, whose very name is jealous, is a jealous God. Do not make a covenant with the people living in the land. It will cause you to go astray after their gods and sacrifice to their gods. Then they will invite you to join them in eating their sacrifices, and you will take their daughters as wives for your sons. Their daughters will prostitute themselves to their own gods and make your sons do the same. Do not cast metal gods for yourselves. Keep the festival of matzah by eating matzah as I ordered you, for 7 days during the month of Aviv. For it was the month of Aviv you came out from Egypt. Everything that is first from the womb is mine. All of your livestock you are to set aside for me, the males. Of all your livestock you're to set aside for me the males, the firstborn of cattle and flock. The firstborn of a donkey you must redeem with a lamb. If you don't redeem it, break its neck. All the firstborn of your sons you are to redeem, and no one is to appear before me empty-handed. 6 days you will work, but on the 7th day you are to rest. Even in plowing time and harvest season you are to rest. Observe the festival of Shavuot with the first gathered produce of the wheat harvest, and the festival of ingathering at the turn of the year. 3 times a year all your men are to appear before the Lord, Adonai, the God of Israel. For I'm going to expel nations ahead of you and expand your territory, and no one will even covet your land when you go up to appear before Adonai your God 3 times a year. You are not to offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread, and the sacrifice of the feast of Pesach is not to be left until morning. You are to bring the best first fruits of your land into the house of Adonai your God. You are not to boil a young goat in its mother's milk. So that's the end of the portion for today. Well, I'm sure that as we read through there, you immediately saw where I got the title of my message. And unfortunately, Rick, the speakers are ringing again up here every time I say something. Verses 12 through 16 is where I want to focus our attention. You guys know the context of this, of Moshe saying these things to God, pleading with God to go with them. This is after Moshe has been up on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. He's received the tablets of the commandments from the Lord, the covenant from the Lord. And God says, you need to get down the mountain because the people are sinning before me. And Moshe goes down, he gets angry, breaks the first set of tablets that had been written on, the scripture says, by the finger of God. And God decides then, he says, I repent of ever having brought forth these people. And Moshe, you get your household, you and Aharon get your household and get out of the way. I'm going to destroy all of them. And I'm going to start over with you. And of course, we know that Moshe falls on his face before the Lord and pleads, intercedes for the people. And so then God says, well, I may save them and not destroy them, but I'm not going to go with you. And I'm going to send somebody else to go with you. And so Moshe finds himself on his face again, pleading with God not to send them on without him going with them. And that's where we are in this particular passage. Moshe is making the statement, it is not going to make any sense. It won't be any good if we go on and you're not going with us. Because your presence is the only thing that distinguishes us from all the other people. It's the only thing. And it wasn't just, obviously, the reason I'm bringing this up is that it wasn't just them wandering through the wilderness that that's true of. That's true of all of us as well. And if we do not have God going with us, then whatever we do has no true value. And the thing that I wanted to point out too was that ask the question, how is it known that God goes with us? And this has been a sticking point with people, a difficult point with people. But if God is with a people, there has to be some kind of evidence. We can't just say God is with us and expect people to believe that that's the case just because we say it. There has to be some proof that He is with us. And we find the answer to that question in chapter 34, verse 10. Where God speaks and He says, here I'm making a covenant in front of all the people. In front of all your people I will do wonders such as have not been created anywhere on earth or in any nation. All the people around you will see the work of Adonai. What I'm going to do through you will be awesome. And so, if we say God is with us, there needs to be some kind of sign to the world that God is with us. And it's by God doing wonders through us. Now, I'm not standing up here advocating, I'm not saying that we need to have one of those big tent revival meetings where everybody's hooping and hollering and jumping around and people are falling out and all of that kind of stuff. What I am saying, though, is that as we go about our lives, living our lives, it should be a normal part of who we are that we touch people's lives and they are healed and delivered and set free, and not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. That should just be the normal part of being a believer. Because it is through those things that we prove that God is actually with us. Otherwise, our words are empty. So, this particular week that we're camping out here for Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, is about God dwelling with us and us dwelling with Him. Okay? Having Him in our midst. What was it like for them to have Him in their midst? I mean, there was actual physical manifestation that every human being could see. There was a cloud and there was fire. There was evidence of the presence of God in their midst. The people of God there that were encamped around the Mishkan, the tabernacle. It says the presence of God would come down and rest on the mercy seat there. Everybody there could see that happen. There was open manifestation of the power of God in their midst. And God dwelt with them. And so, as we're contemplating and thinking about and actually reenacting the wilderness experience, this needs to be what we're expecting with us. And what was really interesting as I did the study on this particular passage, I've told you on more than one occasion, and some of you already know this, you study it yourself, but there is a portion, at least one portion, if not more than one, from the prophets that goes along with the Torah portion. It's called the Haftarah portion. And in Messianic circles, there's also a portion assigned from the Brit Hadashah, the New Covenant Scriptures, and they're supposed to be related to this passage. Well, I looked up the Haftarah portion, and it is taken from Ezekiel chapter 38. (38:18). That's where it starts. I'm going to read this to you, and I'm going to see what kind of reaction you have. Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 18. When that day comes, when Gog invades the land of Israel, says Adonai Elohim, my furious anger will boil up. In my jealousy, in my heated fury I speak. When that day comes, there will be a great earthquake in the land of Israel, so that the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, the wild beasts, all the reptiles creeping on the ground, and every human being there in the land will tremble before me. Mountains will fall, cliffs crumble, and every wall crash to the ground. I will summon a sword against him throughout all my mountains, says Adonai Elohim. Every man will wield his sword against his brother. I will judge him with the plague and with blood. I will cause torrential rain to fall on him, his troops, and the many peoples with him, along with huge hailstones, fire, and sulfur. I will show my greatness and holiness, making myself known in the sight of many nations. Then they will know that I am Adonai. So there is a tie-in. God shows himself in power. Chapter 39. So you, human being, prophesy against Gog. Say that Adonai Elohim says, I am against you, Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tuval. I will turn you around, lead you on, and bring you from the far reaches of the north against the mountains of Israel. But then I will knock your bow out of your left hand and make your arrows drop from your right hand. You will fall on the mountains of Israel, you, your troops, and all the peoples with you. I will give you to be eaten up by all kinds of birds of prey and by wild animals. You will fall in the open field, for I have spoken, says Adonai Elohim. By the way, Gog is Russia. in case you didn't know. I will also send fire against Magog and against those living securely in the coastlands. Actually, Gog is not Russia. Magog is Russia. Gog is the leader of Russia. Okay? Then they will know that I am Adonai. I will make my holy name known among my people Israel. I will not allow my holy name to be profaned any longer. Then the Goyim, the Gentiles, will know that I am Adonai, the Holy One in Israel. Yes, this is coming, and it will be done, says Adonai Elohim. This is the day about which I have spoken. Those living in Israel's cities will go out and set fire to the weapons to use as fuel. The shields, breastplates, bows, arrows, clubs, and spears, they will use them for fire 7 years, so that they will not need to gather wood from the fields or cut down any from the forests, because they will use the weapons for fire. Thus they will plunder those who plundered them and rob those who robbed them, says Adonai Elohim. When that day comes, I will give Gog a place there in Israel for graves, the traveler's valley, east of the sea, and it will block the traveler's passage. There they will bury Gog and all his horde, and they will rename it the Valley of Hamon Gog, or Horde of Gog. It will take the house of Israel 7 months to bury them in order to cleanse the land. Yes, all the people of the land will be burying them. They will become famous for it. It will be a day for me to be glorified, says Adonai Elohim. They will then pick men for the continual duty of going through the land and burying with the travelers, the corpses still lying on the ground in order to cleanse it. They will begin their search after the 7 months. So, for 7 months, they'll be burying the ones they can see, and then after that, they're going to have to go looking for more dead bodies to bury after 7 months. As they go through the land, if anyone sees a human bone, he will put a marker next to it until the grave diggers have buried it in the valley of Hamon Gog. Moreover, Hamonah, its horde, will be the name of a city. Thus will they cleanse the land. Now I read this and I was like, what in the world? How is this in any way connected to the Torah portion for today? And so I went looking, searching for the connection. And this is what I found. The subject of the Haftarah of this Shabbat is the war of Gog and Magog that will precede the final redemption. Its connection to the holy day of Sukkot is that according to tradition, the war will take place during the month of Tishri, the month when the holiday of Sukkot falls. In addition, this war is identical to the one described in the 14th chapter of Zechariah. Let's go over there so you'll know what they're talking about. So Zechariah chapter 14, verses 1 through 21. Look, a day is coming for Adonai, when your plunder, Jerusalem, will be divided right there within you. For I will gather all the nations against Jerusalem for war. The city will be taken, the houses will be rifled, the women will be raped, and half the city will go into exile, but the rest of the people will not be cut off from the city. Then Adonai will go out and fight against those nations, fighting as on a day of battle. On that day his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, which lies to the east of Jerusalem, and the Mount of Olives will be split in half from east to west to make a huge valley. Half of the mountain will move toward the north, and half of it toward the south. You will flee to the valley in the mountains, for the valley in the mountains will reach to Atzel. You will flee just as you fled before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Yehudah. Then Adonai my God will come to you with all the holy ones. On that day there will be neither bright light nor thick darkness, and one day known to Adonai will be neither day nor night, although by evening there will be light. That's very mysterious language there. On that day fresh water will flow out from Jerusalem, half toward the eastern sea and half toward the western sea, both summer and winter. Then Adonai will be king over the whole world. On that day Adonai will be the only one, and his name will be the only name. So there is a connection then between the passage in Ezekiel and this passage in Zechariah, which is the description of the return of the Messiah. So I read on. This war is identical to the one described in the 14th chapter of Zechariah. The Haftarah read on the first day of Sukkot. This portion that we just read is the Haftarah portion for the first day of Sukkot, which concludes by saying that the Gentile survivors of this war will be required to go to Jerusalem every year on the holiday of Sukkot to pay homage to God. The prophet describes Gog's war against Israel and God's furious response. God will send an earthquake, pestilence, great floods, and hailstones and fire, utterly destroying Gog's armies. And I will reveal myself in my greatness and in my holiness, and will be recognized in the eyes of many nations, and they will know that I am the Lord. I will make known my holy name in the midst of my people Israel, and I will no longer cause my holy name to be profaned, and the nations will know that I, the Lord, am holy in Israel. The Haftarah concludes by saying that the weaponry of the defeated armies of Gog will provide fuel for fire for 7 years. The Jews, quote, shall carry no wood from the fields, nor cut down any from the forests, for they shall make fires from the weapons. So the connection between the portion for Shabbat that occurs within Sukkot to the Haftarah portion is it's a timing issue. Whereas we're talking in the Torah portion about a past time when God was with his people and did wonders in their midst, the Haftarah portion talks about a future time when the same thing is going to be true. When God is going to come down in the form of the Messiah, the King, and he will overthrow Gog and Magog on the mountains of Israel, and that then ushers into him reigning in Israel, his presence, manifest presence, being there in Israel in their midst. And of course we read the mighty things that he does on their behalf. And the result, I cannot imagine what it will be like that they will have to take 7 months to bury all of the bodies. I mean, we've never seen anything like that before. And the one thing that I've always wondered about and scratched my head about is the description of all of the stuff that the army uses and that is made out of wood that they will be able to burn. Because we have gotten so far beyond spears and clubs and shields and all of that with our weaponry, and it will be interesting to see why that will be, because that's just something that I can't imagine that they would. Well, and it may be just that the prophet didn't know how to describe what he was seeing, just except using the terms that he understood at that time. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, but this is talking specifically about wood, about not having to cut trees or gather wood. So, anyway, we'll see, huh? Because obviously this hasn't been fulfilled yet. There's no recorded place in history that we can point to and say this prophecy has been fulfilled. Yes?
Amber's just noticing something in the Bible that she was asking about, and it would explain how come there's a different setup of reading. She turned the page and it said that not for what we were reading was in Kings, and I told her, I said, well, that doesn't have to do with special holidays.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, just for everybody's sake, if you turn back to Shemot, Exodus chapter 33, that portion that we first read, you will see that chapter falls within the Torah portion Ki Tisa, which begins with chapter 30, verse 11, and goes through chapter 34, verse 35. That's the normal weekly parsha, or portion, that is read when we're reading through the Torah. But on holy days, they, what's the word? It's not that they abandon, but they shift. They don't continue to read in that cycle. They have special portions that they have chosen for these holy days. And so those special portions have their own, because they're trying to bring forth a particular point to the people who are reading. And so they have special Torah portions and then their own special Haftorah portions that go along with that. So it deviates from the normal readings that you would read during the weekly Shabbat. Anyway, back to the point of what I was saying. All of this that we have read points to and talks about God being in the midst of His people, and there being dramatic, not just some little evidence, but dramatic evidence that He is in their midst. When He says stuff like, I'm going to do wonders through you that the world hasn't ever seen, that's major. Okay? And Yeshua, and we've talked about this numerous times, Yeshua, when He was here, we look back and we read about Him and what He did, and we go, that is absolutely amazing what He did. And yet He, out of His own mouth, says, you'll do greater than this. And so Moshe said, if you don't go with us, we don't want to go, because your presence with us is the only thing that distinguishes us from everyone else. So there is evidence of His presence with us, and it is by His power being manifest through His, in the midst of and through His people. And so instead of just looking forward to the day, the war of Gog and Magog, when He will come back and show Himself strong, and earthquakes and hailstones and all of that, we need to be We need to be expecting and asking God to show Himself strong in our midst so that we can say along with them, you being with us distinguishes us from all the other people in the earth. So let's pray for that. Let's ask for that. Because we need it. And I know we have it on a limited basis. We've prayed for people and seen them healed. We've counseled with people, seen them set free. So we see it. It's not like it's absent totally. But I believe that there is a greater manifestation that is supposed to be present. So, Father, we thank You for being able to be together on Sukkot during this week, Father. We've had a wonderful time already being able to worship You together, to share with one another what You're doing and in our lives, the way that You're changing our lives, the miraculous things that You do on a daily basis for us. And Father, I'm just asking for clearer, more evident manifestations of Your presence with us, in all of us, not just one or two. But You're desiring this to be the reality for the entire body. And Father, it's not right now. So we together pray in agreement with You, Lord. Distinguish us by Your presence. And don't send us anywhere without it. Because without You, without Your presence, without the manifestation of Your power and Your authority in us, then everything that we do is vain and futile. Father, we want our lives and what we do to be eternal, to have eternal significance and to last through that fire of judgment that we read about, that it not burn up like wood, hay, and stubble. So we ask this in the authority of Yeshua. Amen.
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make His face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up His countenance upon you and give you peace. Yevarechek Adonai v'yishmarecha. Yair Adonai panav alecha v'chunecha. Isa Adonai panav alecha v'yasem lecha B'shem Yeshua Mishikenu, Adonenu, Tzidkenu, Yeshuatenu, Sar Shalom. In the name of Yeshua, our Messiah, our Lord, our righteousness, our salvation, the Prince of Peace. Amen.